So today we're going to tell you about what this light is on your dashboard. It looks like a bear claw with an exclamation point in it, but it's actually a tire pressure monitor. So when your tires go flat, if you have a car newer than 2008, you'll get this light on your dashboard. Dan's going to tell us more about it.
So, as Jerry mentioned, all vehicles as of 2008 and newer are required to have a tire pressure monitoring system. Some vehicles prior to that got them, but that was usually only in your more fancy cars. Early designs used your ABS or your wheel speed sensor to use the rotation of the wheels to kind of get a good guesstimate on if a tire is low or not. Newer ones use individual sensors in the actual rim that are battery powered and send a signal back to the body control module and are much more precise and will give actual PSI readings to the body control module. Your base models will tend to have just a light, whereas your higher end models will actually give you a display on the dash that'll go individual tires, individual tire pressures, and whatnot. But you really only see this light if one or more tires is 25% low or more from the programming, the way that the vehicle is set up.
And to reset these, sometimes your vehicle has to go through a series of events. I know I have a specific vehicle. It requires you to drive for 15 minutes at highway speeds after a series of key on and key off events. So there are some cars out there that are kind of a hassle to reset these tire pressure monitors. Many of them, you just fill up the tire and go, and it resets itself and all is well. But there are some out there that are more complicated. So you'd have to kind of look up on the internet or a service manual or a dealer to find out what the reset procedure is for your car if you're having trouble getting rid of the light and you know your tires are pressurized. But needless to say, most are as easy as just filling up your tires.
Now, one interesting thing about this is this law this became required due to a recall that some of you might remember back in 2000, where Firestone and Explorers were pretty much popping tires and causing rollovers.
Right.
So, out of one of the benefits, obviously rolling over a vehicle is not that beneficial, but one of the benefits that did come out of it is this requirement, this law, and this kind of safety thing to alert the average consumer that your tires are low.
Right. Yeah, it's a great thing to have. And most newer vehicles that you buy are going to have that. Anything newer than 2008 will definitely have it. But many cars, 2005 and newer, especially the higher end cars, will most definitely have this feature. So look for it on your dashboard and be sure to keep your tires pressurized. We also got some more questions through our blog and through the Facebook and Twitter, and then just through our website. So we're going to answer a few more of those this week as well. First one is, it came through our blog, and it was a gentleman who wanted to know, he was having transmission trouble with his 2003 Nissan Maxima, and he wanted to switch his automatic to a manual transmission. Now, I have actually done this before. Not to a Maxima, I did it to a Mitsubishi Galant, but it's generally the same procedure. You have to do a lot of planning if you want it to go smoothly. You need your transmission, you need your transmission mounts, sometimes you need different axles, obviously the shifter and the shifter cables, if it has cables.
On your newer cars, you're going to probably need a new wiring harness or to modify it,
Yep.
New ECU, PCM, or reprogramming it.
Yep, very true. Along with that, you'll need the flywheel, the clutch, the hydraulic mechanisms for it, the clutch master cylinder and the clutch slave cylinder and the lines in between. If you're working on an older car, like, I'm not sure about the 2003 Maxima, but I know that my 2000 Galant was this way, where all you had to do to get the reverse lights to work was basically butt connect one wire together, and suddenly you got your brake or your reverse lights working, and the car was none the wiser that you didn't have an automatic transmission anymore. The computer was sending it signals to something that wasn't there, and you were just manually shifting it. It honestly worked great. I gained 5 miles per gallon instantly. It was one of the best upgrades I've ever done to a car. We did actually find a step-by-step procedure for a 2003 Maxima on the internet, and we'll post a link for it down below in the video.
Yeah, it will require a little bit of welding skills, apparently. Something to do with the way the mounts are set up on an automatic versus a manual. But that'll be detailed in there for you.
Yep. We also got another question about a Taurus wagon. The customer is concerned that his transmission may blow up because it is a Taurus wagon, and that's what apparently they're known for. So he asked us what he can do to prevent it from destroying itself.
Luckily, this applies to pretty much any automatic transmission.
Exactly.
Some vehicles will have a little more specialty stuff to it, but for the most part, it's maintaining your fluid, checking it regularly, and changing your filter regularly.
Right.
Would you say 30,000 on this one?
Yeah, we did a little research on it, and many people recommend changing your fluid and filter at 30,000 miles on these cars. That's a lot more frequently than you would do it on some other cars, but as this guy has researched, the transmissions in these cars apparently are known for slipping and shifting issues. So doing maintenance a little more frequently is probably going to save you money in the long run.
One of the things that I've always been told, if the vehicle's got higher mileage, it's probably not best to do a power flush. And reason being is all the kind of materials that have built up in the transmission over the years, which are kind of out of sight, out of mind on the casing, not in the clutches and bands or in the valve body, are just kind of there. And when you power flush it, that can actually cause some of this gunk that's built up over the years to get into those tiny nooks and crevices. And if you've ever been inside of an automatic transmission, first off, they just work by magic to begin with.
Essentially, yes.
So, but there's lots of little tiny passages and check balls and valves and stuff like that. And once you start getting crud in there and some of that built up, burnt off old transmission fluid, it just causes more problems than you solve. And
right.
$100 power flush is not worth the $1,500 to $3,000 bill for a new transmission or rebuilt transmission.
Yes, exactly.
Another thing too is if it's not something that you'd really do on a wagon or a sedan or something like that. But if you are doing a lot of hauling, a lot of towing, a lot of road trips with a family full of gear in the bed, it might be a good idea to put an automatic transmission cooler on there. Yep. It allows a little more cooling, a little more fluid to be in the system. And it'll bring the temps down in those really heavy-duty situations.
Yeah, absolutely. One more question that we got, and this will probably be our last question for today, was a customer wanted to know, he had a 2011 Ford Crown Victoria, and he wanted to know how to change the shocks in it. Many old shocks are very easy to replace by just taking a bolt off the top, two on the bottom, and drop it down out the bottom of the car. In this case, it's actually a shock and spring assembly, and it requires quite a bit more work to replace. There's actually a need to remove the upper ball joint, which sometimes you need a ball joint puller for, and you need to separate the control arm from the knuckle, and then from there you remove the bolts on the top, the bolts on the bottom, and you pull out the whole shock and spring assembly. It's significantly more work than the average shock. It's definitely doable in a driveway as long as you have some automotive knowledge and some basic tools around you.
What's nice these days too is when these cars first came out, to do a shock you'd have to on this coilover setup you'd have to get a spring compressor. You'd have to undo the upper nut, compress it, make sure the spring is compressed safely so it didn't shoot the upper mount off the second you took the nut off. Reassemble everything, put it back together, and then you install it on the car. That's not really. It's a little more dangerous for the average person who doesn't have
spring compressors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot more work. Whereas now there's quite a few companies that have all-in-one assembly. Mm-hmm. Where everything's ready to go. It's fully assembled. There's no worrying about compressing springs and shooting parts everywhere. So you can pull everything out, toss out the old setup, and put a brand new one in.
Right.
Safer, quicker, and you're back to normal. You're not sagging springs, not blown shocks. It's just a all-in-one better option.
Yeah, it is. In the long run, it saves you a lot of work and a lot of frustration, because reusing upper strut mounts and shocks and springs on your shock is just a hassle.
You've got one brand new part and you've got a bunch of old used ones.
Exactly.
And chances are, if one part's worn out, well, the other ones might not be all the way there, but they're getting there. They're getting close. Especially those rubber bits that are just beaten on and weathered. They're going to fall apart on you.
Yes.
And you're going to wish that you made that one stop shop for the one piece, as opposed to realizing halfway through the job, now I got to go back and get those anyway, and I have to put them together myself.
Exactly, yeah. And it applies for loaded struts, too. If you've ever had the option of buying a bare strut or a loaded strut, the price difference isn't huge. It's well worth it to get a loaded strut, because you can do the job in like half the time with like half the amount of tools. It's just
much safer.
So much safer,
much
much easier. Overall, it's the better bet. So that pretty much wraps up episode 2. And don't forget to ask us more questions down below in the comment section or on Facebook. And we'll see you next week. All right?
Thanks for watching.
Thanks.
So these tools...
Tools?
Yeah, I know.